Thank you guys for being here with us today. I think you've placed yourselves perfectly because it's in the order I wanted to introduce you in anyways. That's so perfect. So we'll start with you, Enrico. You're Enrico Gabriele. You're the head of data and AI consulting at STACKIT, which is the sovereign cloud provider of Schwarz Digits. You've got over a decade of experience in strategically and operationally supporting companies along the data analytics and AI value chain. Glad to have you here.
Thank you for having me here. Thank you.
We'll continue with you, Jonas Andrulis. You're the founder and CEO of Aleph Alpha, which, fun fact, as I read in my research, is not the first AI startup that you've founded, but rather the third one already. So you're also a true expert in the field of everything related to AI. For Aleph Alpha specifically, you've raised a total of over 500 million euros from some of the best European deep tech investors and strategic partners. And you're still at the forefront of developing cutting-edge AI research and providing basic technology in Europe. Thanks for being here.
Great to be here.
We'll continue with Georg Schlenkhoff, who leads the go-to-market activities for Mistral AI in the DACH region specifically. You've also got more than 15 years of experience in enterprise software sales. You support organizations in implementing specifically generative AI and in infrastructure and real-world use cases. Glad that you're here, Georg.
Thank you for having me.
And of course, last but not least, Timo, Graf from Koenigsmarck. He serves as Executive Vice President leading the Public Sector Division at Capgemini Invent. That's a mouthful, sorry. With great enthusiasm, you specifically drive digitization projects in the field of public sector and public investment, with a particular focus on a new vision of how public administration can serve citizens in the age of digital and AI. Great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I want to start with a really fundamental question to you guys, all of you specifically, which is going to sort of stand at the heart of what we want to talk about today. So when we talk specifically about AI sovereignty, what do we actually mean, and why has it become such a crucial issue for Europe? I think it's good to define these things before you really dive into them. Jonas, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's become kind of a buzzword, and it means all kinds of things like where's your company headquarters, what kind of data center are you using. For me, essentially, sovereignty is the ability to take responsibility for future outcomes. Right? So we are now in one of the most pivotal points in technology history. And the way Germany and Europe will look in the future, and the whole world, the whole new world order that will evolve, will be fundamentally shaped by the decisions we make today. And there's a bunch of dimensions to this. There's like a technical dimension, like who gets to decide what is the right answer to a controversial question. There's an operational side. Is there anybody that can switch me off? There's a data and a governance side. Like, can somebody steal my data? Can somebody monetize the things that I own? And there's a value dimension to that as well. Like, who gets to profit? Who gets to participate on the value that's being created in maybe the fastest industrial revolution ever? And I think out of all those dimensions, we have to master, we have to approach them all. And that's why it's so great to have partners like on the stage here, right? Because it's almost impossible that a single company can solve all of those dimensions.
So I think I really found the meta aspect really interesting that you addressed, which that it's about responsibility. Yeah. Georg, how do you feel about Jonas's definition? Anything you would want to add?
Yeah, I think responsibility is, of course, a key factor, and especially if we look at I mean, still 2/3 of the models are produced or developed in the US. And I think AI sovereignty means that we have control over our own models. And why do we need this? I mean, this is the key question. And I think there are like 3 aspects I want to highlight. First of all, Germany or Europe has a different kind of jurisdiction. We have the EU AI Act, we have GDPR. So this all needs to be reflected when we develop and train the models. A second aspect I want to highlight is about our cultural values. I mean, we think somehow different, which is good, and we leave everyone its space in the world. But if we want to base our decisions on models, we need those thinking to be implemented in the models. And I think that's also a key reason why we need to control our models. And the third aspect is, I think democracy is key for Germany, key for European countries. And in research, democracy means open source. And I think we need to really emphasize the open source aspect. If we look, for example, just I think last month, the ETH Zurich has released a new model, which is called Apertus. We and you also emphasize open source, and we learn from each other. We also learn from China. China learns from us. That's fine for us, but we really want to have not live in a world of closed source and closed models, but really emphasize this key point. And I think all these three aspects are not maybe the first choice of other countries, of US or China. And I think if we don't continue with this path and don't invest in our own AI sovereignty, we might lose a massive opportunity that lays ahead of us. And we are very dependent. I think that's the key challenge that we get into trouble.
I think that's a very interesting angle to also emphasize that AI sovereignty can mean something different depending on where you are, so that in Europe we have certain values that are specific to us, to our society, to our political system, to the way our economy works, that then influence what AI sovereignty means. I think that's really interesting. Enrico, something you would want to add? What's your perspective?
I find it was very good topics where we can, if we are looking at sovereign AI. Sovereign AI is for me more than only be sovereign, it's more being digital sovereign. So we have to make sure that all layers of our infrastructure, of our technology, of our data, of our operating is sovereign. Because if you look, our AI is included in all our critical business processes. If it's run on platforms which are not in the EU or in a sovereign environment, we have risk which we have to manage. Because it is true that we have geopolitical risks, we have legal risks, and with that risk we have dependencies, we have vendor logins which we have to find a way how we can solve this. And for me, we have to solve this with sovereignty. We have to have the control of our infrastructure, of our full technology stack. And if you thinking about what is sovereignty, sovereignty starts for me with infrastructure. So ask yourself, where's your data stored? Where's your data proceed? Who operates your system? And it's everything under EU law. If not, you are not sovereign.
So you really highlighted the technological aspect, which is the question of, is the technology in itself sovereign to us in Europe? Timo, a lot of things have already been said, but I'm sure you have something to add.
Absolutely, and even if it's just to keep it interesting. To me, the first point is sovereign doesn't mean just German, just European. Sovereign is having a viable choice, and as the colleague said, on every level. And one of these choices, at least one of these choices being European or open source. It doesn't mean everything needs to be European or open source, but at every level of the stack, you need at least one European open source choice that you can go to if J.D. Vance gets president in the United States.
Worst case scenario.
Heuristic, that was a joke. And that's the basic function. And then we can go into a long discussion what that stack includes. Like there's an initiative, the Eurostack, that goes into even the minerals we need to build chips should be part of that stack. And that's an interesting and important discussion. But I think for the moment we need to start with the technology stack, as you said, and make that sovereign first, and then go from there if worst comes to worst.
Okay, so we've got a lot of different layers to address when it comes to sovereignty, both generally digital sovereignty, but AI sovereignty specifically. I have another quote that you guys brought here, which you all can read. We can read too, but the key of it is that Chancellor Friedrich Merz recently said that the US and China are already in a neck-and-neck race for AI leadership, and that Europe still has an opportunity to catch up. That's his take, at least. Georg, I would want to start with you. Would you say you agree with him? And how does digital sovereignty, as we just discussed it now, factor into that race? Can it be an accelerator, or is it something that can actually slow us down?
Yeah, I think I would definitely agree. And I mean, since our company is based in France, in Paris, I'm a bit inspired also by the economy policy by Emmanuel Macron. For example, in February, he did an AI Action Summit. Maybe some of you have seen this, where he invited the whole world to Paris, but he gave a strong focus also on European enterprises and also startups. And one initiative which I found quite interesting was the EU AI Champions Initiative, where also a lot of German companies like Volkswagen, Deutsche Telekom, BMW came together and said that we are committed to build strong champions between us, between on the one side the Gen AI sector, because I think we all agree that this technology massively disrupts how we build cars, how we do telecommunication and so on. And the idea was established by this champion initiative of a flywheel. And I think that's a good idea because on the one side, the established enterprises with a lot of money, of course, can help the startups and the Gen AI champions in Europe to build their product and be the first consumer. We help them, of course, to adapt it to their processes. We've seen examples, for example, at ASML, who does lithography, and they partner up with us to make the Gen AI enable this process. And I would really appreciate to see more of these flywheels when we think about economy policy. And there are many sectors. We are strong in automotive, and we are strong in manufacturing. And why not establish more of these flywheels where established enterprises help the Gen AI sector to grow, and it also helps them to grow. Mm-hmm. That's the goal.
So more flywheels is what you would say can really bring us forward in that regard. Jonas, what's your take? Do you see it quite as optimistically?
Oh, I love flywheels. So I think when we look at the amount of capex that the hyperscalers have put into their infrastructure, when we look at the amount of investments, the first perspective could be, it's over, right? We can never outspend the investors in the US, and we saw the Middle East up there too in the earlier talk. There's something interesting there. Recent studies have shown that everything that AI has, or most of the things AI has produced so far, have contributed little value, and general purpose models are what one investor called the fastest depreciating asset in tech history, right? So you build something for like 9 figures, and then in 6 months later, nobody really wants to use it because technology progresses so fast. We've also seen, and we saw this on the chart earlier, new models are increasingly better, but they still do not generalize auto distribution. What that means is they can learn what you can scope up from the internet, they can learn what you can have labeled through like labeling providers or from your user data, but we have, like many of our customers, and we have shared similar industries, they found that even the best new models cannot understand their proprietary documents. They don't understand this language that our investors like Bosch or Deutsche Bank speak internally perfectly, right? And we've also seen now the era of the small language model. So we've seen that you don't actually need, for specialized agents, you don't actually need a model that costs you like hundreds of millions, but you can take your own data and you can specialize your own agent and basically keep control of your IP. You don't actually need to spend that much to get work done and create value. And I think this is what makes me confirm what Mert said, right? In the sense that, yes, this is where we can excel, and this is where we can contribute meaningful innovation, like with our tokenizer-free architecture that can learn auto distribution knowledge significantly better than anything else on the market.
Mm-hmm. So Georg and Jonas see and say the potential for us to really being able to accelerate still in the field of AI and to be able to catch up. Timo, going to you, when we look at sort of the regulatory landscape and everything that sort of comes into the game from that perspective, how does that affect our ability to still be able to catch up? Are we creating the right frameworks for this to work, what the two of them are actually describing here?
That's a good question. I think it's one of three key components to regulation. Like, from my perspective and what we see globally, we will not be able to catch up in the race the US and China has set out at their rules. And coming late to that game, playing by these rules, it's really hard, and the speaker prior to us has shown amazing graphs showing that this is difficult. And I still believe there's a great chance for Europe to find its place, like as you have said. And regulation is the first part. We have the best regulation when it comes to AI in the world, and it can be even better. It's very clear. It creates trust. It's maybe not flexible enough yet, and it makes sense to include these companies in the next round of adjustments. The second thing is, yes, and it was mentioned before, we need decisive political decisions, economic political decisions, to say we build a couple champions, or there's certain areas where there is fundamental investment because we need it as a continent. And the third is, we do need a lot more courage. Like, we do need the courage to go the European way. Mm-hmm. And there's a ton, like, if you open your mind to that, there's a ton of opportunities we're not even talking about. Like, yes, we build gigafactories that are not a tenth of what they build in Saudi Arabia or the US. But if you think about edge computing, just the mobile phones running around in Germany have more compute than Google globally. And if you think, or with what you can do with GDPR, every citizen in Europe owning their own data, be it your Netflix account, your Google profile, it's your data. You could do something with it. Like, if we start thinking out of the box more, what is aligned with our European values, and apply the rules we already have and the technology that is there or almost there, there's a ton of opportunities. We don't need to lose the race they set up. We can set our own race and we will win it.
Mm-hmm. So finding the courage really to redefine what the European way can be, and opening our mind to it. I have one more thing I want to quickly address, because we're short-timed here today. But now we talked a bit about the necessity to have sovereign stacks and to have sovereign technology and sovereign software. I just want to quickly hear from you guys. What's your opinion? Should public procurement actually mandate an auditable or European-hosted model for, like, specifically critical services? Or would you say that's going too far into the area of protectionism? Enrico, let's start with you.
So, I would say public procurement is a very strong lever. So, but it's not about isolation. We have to make sure that we build a sovereign infrastructure with right investment, with trust in our European capabilities, mm-hmm. because we need a strong partnership. We need a public-private partnership to scale in the data centers in the cloud on EU jurisdiction, and therefore we need commitment of the industries and of the government to fulfill this.
Mm-hmm. Jonas, how do you feel? Short answer.
Yes. So short answer is yes, because the public sector, and this makes Europe different from any other place in the world. The mm-hmm. public sector can move mountains here. If we join forces, if we align in the right direction, and I think the public sector needs to think about more than what's the cheapest price for what I want to order right now. It needs to think about risks, needs to think about responsibilities, needs to think about ecosystems. Like, just out of Aleph Alpha, there's already been 4 startups being created, mm-hmm. right? And so if we support our local companies and our local players, this has so much benefit in our ecosystems that we don't immediately see in the prices. And I think the public sector can take this into account. And from what I'm seeing, and from the conversations I'm having, and what I'm seeing in the high-tech agenda and all that, this is happening. This is taking place. So I'm very confident that public sector will play a pivotal role.
All right. Good to hear from you guys on that note. Now, before we close, I'd like to ask each of you specifically for one final sentence that you want to leave our guests with, something like a message that you want to specifically convey to them in answer to the question, what does Europe need to do now in order to achieve everything we've just talked about? Timo, let's start with you.
To put it short, free ourselves from the boundaries that feel set around us in what race we need to participate in, but have the courage to find our European way with European companies, open source, and win that one.
Georg.
I would say we already have very strong AI players. We have very strong talent around here in Europe. We have GPU capacities built up. and popping up. So everything is there, and I think let's really establish more and more flywheels to fuel this machine and keep our strong position in the world.
The flywheels are really the image I think that everyone's going to remember now. Jonas, what about you?
So to shape the future according to our values, we need two things. We need innovation, value creation, and we are traditionally good at that. And then we need value capture, and this is where sovereignty comes in. Because if we're not sovereign, somebody else will benefit from our innovation, and this is what we have to prioritize now.
Enrico, final sentence for today.
Thank you. And for me, I would say, to be successful, we need a very strong ecosystem in the sovereign dimension.
All right, that was a short sentence. Thank you very much for keeping to that. All right, I want to thank the four of you for being here today. It was a very insightful discussion, I think, about sovereignty, even though I wish we would have had more time, but I do believe you'll all be here throughout maybe at least the next hour, so maybe some of our guests who have questions can deepen their discussion with you guys. Big round of applause, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.